Hello, it's your boy, Rusty Roadie 1313, coming at you, not live, here on YouTube. And that's right, you have noticed something different about my hair. It's because my hair is in a different room. We are in a new studio. That's right, we're no longer shooting in my room, we're actually shooting down here instead. So that way we'll be able to pump out some more content for you folks at home. And today, I want to showcase you my most favorite deck, the most dreaded abyss, the most conflicting deck profile I have ever showcased on YouTube. And that's saying something a lot for the first deck profile. It is Spyrals. Yes, we are finally doing it. It's time to look at the top 3 cards of your opponent with yours truly. And with that being said, let's begin. So, if you are new with the Spyral deck profile, the essential tip you want to know about the deck is that if you guess the top card of your opponent's deck correctly, such as monster, spell, or trap, then you're able to get bonus effects from your card effects. And Spyral has a way to manipulate that to be, instead of just guessing, you'll just be able to know, but also, more importantly, you'll actually gain information on your opponent. So, let's get on to the deck profile and I'll show you how. Starting off with Spyral Super Agent. Now, Spyral Super Agent is probably one of the biggest playmakers of the deck, as he's so important that other monsters in the deck also have the name Spyral Super Agent in the graveyard. So with Spyral Super Agent, if you guess a top card correctly, such as monster, spells, or traps, you're able to special summon him from the hand onto the field. Then he can destroy a spell or trap card your opponent controls. He's hard once per turn, but definitely important to get off. And if you wanted to be sure that you do, you are going to normal summon or special summon Spiral Gear Drone first. So when Spiral Gear Drone is summoned onto the field, you get to look at your opponent's top 3 cards. Rearrange it in any order you want to, and then afterwards you get to go off from there. He's probably one of the important main deck starters as well, and you want to run up to 3. He also has a neat effect where he can banish himself and a Spyral card to return a Spyral Super Agent. And that can be really important for the grind game. Then we have Spyral Tough, who is also named Spyral Super Agent on the field. The only difference is he cannot be special summoned the same way as Super Agent does. However, when he is on the field, you can assume the top card correctly, and you get to pop any card of the field. And that's really good. Then you have Spyral Sleeper. He is sort of like the main deck boss monster of the game. And the way you summon him is that you banish 3 Spyral cards. That can be Spyral monster, spells, or traps. So you banish 3 Spyral cards from the graveyard and banish. Then you can target 1 Spyral card you control, pop 2 cards your opponent controls. And of course we have Spyral Quick Fix, the best boy of the deck, my personal favorite monster when it comes to this. So on normal or special, he gets to actually search a Spyral Gear card from deck to hand. Then what's even better about him is that when you control a Spyral Super Agent on the board, you can discard a card in your hand and you'll be able to revive him back from the graveyard. However, he will get banished afterwards, but we have ways to go around that. And of course, you play the last Spyral card, which is Spyral Gear Last Resort. So he is essentially a protection for Sleeper, meaning Sleeper can target himself and then target 2 of your opponent's monsters or back row cards and destroy them. So Last Resort is not only good for protection, but it's also good for getting that last bit of damage for game. The way that you do that is that you send 1 of your cards to graveyard, and whatever resort is equipped to, you get to attack directly. And that wraps up the Spyral monsters themselves. Then, we are a combo deck, essentially. So we are going to go through a number of combo pieces. The main play of the deck is probably going to be with Barrier Statue of the Stormwinds. Now, by the end of your board, he's going to be the very last monster you summon. And you're going to be able to lock your opponent out of the wind. You're going to be able to lock your opponent out of their deck especially because they cannot special summon any monsters except for winds. You have Codebreaker 0 Day, because you are playing the Codebreaker engine. Then, you're also playing with Silent Boots and Ancient Cloak, because you're playing with the PK engine as well. And, of course, we are playing the dreaded Dark Magician and Red Eyes Black Dragon. We are also playing a Dragoon engine as a backup. And that wraps up all the combo pieces. And of course we have 1, 2, 3 Ash Blossoms, because generically this can hit about every deck, even if it's not essentially the best hand trap of the format. This is essentially going to help you against every deck of the format. And then we have 2 DD Crows. Funny enough, DD Crow is actually essential to the combo, so we do play 2, but it's also an actually good hand trap for the format. And that wraps up the main deck boss monsters. Alright, then we have our spells. So we're starting off with, yes, Pot of Prosperity. Now, even though this is a combo deck, you do have room for extra deck monsters to banish. Essentially, you're banishing monsters that you don't need in combo. So for your first turn, you'll be able to actually banish 3 cards in your extra deck, and then excavate up to 3 cards. Now when it comes to first turn, the half amount of damage doesn't matter. It just matters that you're getting a combo piece, and that's a very essential for this deck. Then we play Spyral Gear Big Red. It is the archetype version of a Monster Reborn. While it is a hard once per turn, it does actually protect your monster from battle. So it could be very good in a niche situation. Then of course we play 2 Foolish Burials, because all the Spyral cards in graveyard for spells and traps can be banished and you gain a positive effect out of it. And of course we play the Resorts. The Resort is a searcher for the whole deck as far as monsters when it comes to Spyral. It also gives Spyral a protection of targeting. However, the maintenance cost is that you have to shuffle a main deck monster back into the graveyard. And you could actually manipulate this around, such as bringing back a Spyral monster in deck you want to search for later, or even bringing back a hand trap you want to search for later. Then we play Spyral Mission Assault. When this card is on the field, anytime your Spyral destroys a monster by battle or destroys a card by a card effect, you get to draw a card. However, when it's banished in the graveyard, or it can actually banish itself in the graveyard, and you'll be able to special summon a Spyral monster from hand onto field, which could be very essential for combo. Reinforcement Army, because you do play a lot of warriors in the deck. Terraforming to search out the resort. Call by the Grave to help you negate any hand traps that want to interrupt you. 1 for 1 is a 1.5 card starter for Spyrals. So you can discard a card and special summon a Quick Fix, or possibly even a Big Red if you wanted to. Not Big Red, a Drone if you wanted to. Foolish Burial, because you can send any of the monsters in your deck to the graveyard. Monster Reborn, because you can special summon anything from graveyard. And of course, Red Eyes Fusion for the Dragoon package. And that's going to wrap up the spells. And then we only have about 3 trap cards left, with Rescue and 2 Fog Blades. The Fog Blades are going to be part of your combo, where you're going to be able to negate a monster and preventing from activating and attacking. While Rescue is another target for Foolish Burial Goods that works like a Monster Reborn. However, in a niche situation, Rescue can actually bring back some of your Spyral monsters in graveyard back to your hand. So it's actually a very good grind game of a trap card as well. And that's going to wrap up all the traps. And that's all a 40 card deck so far. Now, when it comes to the Link monsters, it's a very Link heavy deck. I will say this. It is very Link-based strategy. So we start off with Link Karibo, Berete Anaconda, a Wind Charmer, because we are playing the Wind Barrier lock, we can actually summon Wind Charmer because it only requires one monster and one wind monster, meaning you're able actually to get yourself out of a tight situation. Then we play Phoenix, Spyral Double Helix because it's the name of the play. Now, Spyral Double Helix, if you don't know, also counts as a Spyral Super Agent on board. If you assume the top card correctly as a Spyral Trap, as a trap, monster, or spell, then you can special summon a monster from deck or graveyard under its arrow, or here. You can also search out a Spyral card from deck to hand as well. It is a hard once per turn, but it is very essential for the deck. Then we play the Codebreaker because we are playing the Codebreaker engine. We play the Rusty Bardiche for the Phantom Knight engine. We have Unicorn, Bird of Sovereignty to help you get out the Wind Barrier, Codebreaker for the Codebreaker. Then we have Appaloosa Bow the Goddess, Access Code Talker, Firewall Dragon. Yes, this is a ghost rare Firewall Dragon, and we are bringing it back with Playmaker. Then we have a Leerless Starling for the combo to search out our DD Crow. And last and dreaded least, the Red Eyes Dark Dragoon for the last resort Plan B. And that is the whole extra deck. And now we're gonna get into the combo. So now we're in the combo tutorial of Spyral. Essentially, the deck has a 1.5 combo or a 2. Well, how do I say this? Essentially what you need is just two different cards. Of course, if you're lucky enough to have one for one in your hand and a card to discard, that's a different story. But in this case scenario, let's assume we have our bread and butter, being Spyral Gear Drone and Spyral Super Agent. Of course, there are other ways to get into these two cards, but let's just assume for the sake of argument, these are the last two you only have. So with that being said, let's begin. So you start off your turn with a normal summon Spyral Gear Drone. And from here, you use your Spyral Gear Drone to look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. Now let's assume that the less threatening card of them all is going to be a monster effect. And with that, you use your Spyral Super Agents in your hand and you call the top card a monster. So his effect is activated and you special summon the Spyral Super Agent. Then you'd go into a Link 2 play of Spyral Double Helix. Now keep in mind for this entire combo that the Spyral Double Helix has an additional effect to where he is also named Spyral Super Agent on the board. Keep that in mind. So you're going to be able to call the top card a monster, knowing the information you know now, and you're going to be able to special summon a monster under his arrow. And in this case, we're going to be special summoning a Quick Fix from the deck under its arrow. And the Quick Fix has an effect to search out a Spyral Gear card from deck to hand. And that's going to be for every summon. So keep in mind that he is actually a soft once per turn, meaning we're going to be able to search out 3 different cards this one turn. So with our Quick Fix, we're going to search out a Spyral Gear Drone from deck to hand. Then we go into a Link 1 play, going into Link Karibo. And the Quick Fix has a graveyard effect to where you discard him, or you discard the card in your hand and special summon the Quick Fix if you control a Spyral Super Agent. So your Quick Fix from the graveyard by discarding your Gear Drone, and then your Quick Fix is going to special or search a Big Red. So remember how I said that the Big Red is essentially your monster reborn of the deck. So you play your Big Red and you special summon your drone from graveyard to the field. Now if you wanted to, you could actually activate drone again. He is actually a soft once per turn as well. But in this case scenario, we're confident enough to go into our Starling. Alright, and then we activate Starling's effect on the field to detach the Quick Fix, and we're going to be searching out a level 1 DD Crow, because he is a level 1 wing beast to our hand. And of course, if you have other cards in your hand, I would suggest using the quick fix to discard maybe some of the other cards you don't need. But in our case, we're going to assume that DD Crow is the only monster we have left. So we're going to use the quick fix effect and discard the DD Crow. And once more with feeling, we're going to use the quick fix to search out either a big red, a last resort, or even our last drone if we wanted to. But we want to have more priority with the big red for our next turn plays. So now what do we have here on the board? We have a double Helix who is a Link 2, a Starling who is a Wing Beast, a Link Karibo, and a Quick Fix who will leave the board if he's not used as a different summon. But in this case scenario, it's going to be fine. So we use our double Helix and Starling to make a Link 3 monster. And we make the Bird of Sovereignty, because the Bird of Sovereignty only needs a Wing Beast monster in its summoning. So we use our Link Karibo and Quick Fix going into a Swordsman. So now the Swordsman effect activates when he is co-linked to a monster, being able to special summon a Codebreaker from deck, graveyard, or in the hand. But in our case, it's going to be in the deck. So Codebreaker is going to be coming in, and now we have our Swordsman and 0 Day going to the graveyard for our Link 3 play, being their big brother, Codebreaker Virus Berserker. And just like a big brother, he's going to be able to pull out his little brothers, Swordsman and 0 Day, from the graveyard onto Link zones it points to. But now, we have a lot of window of opportunity here to work with. So we're going to be able to use our 0 Day and Swordsman one more time to bust out the Phantom Knights of Rusty Bardiche. So, on the main phase, you're going to be sending a Spyral. We're going to be sending a Phantom Knights monster from the deck to the graveyard. And we're going to be setting a Phantom Knights spell trap from the field, or from the deck to the field, face down. Then, we're going to be activating our Ancient Cloak by banishing himself and searching out our Silent Boots to the hand. Then we have our Silent Boots special summoning to the field because we actually control a Phantom Knights monster. So from here, we actually have even more windows of opportunity to go into. With our Codebreaker and Silent Boots, normally what we want to do is go into our Firewall Dragon. However, we also have the opportunity to go into a Bearte Anaconda play with our 2 effect monsters, and use our Anaconda, we special summon the Dragoon. However, we do lock ourselves out of special summoning even more, meaning we won't be able to activate the Bird of Sovereignty. So, we also have our OTK play, being Access Code Talker as well. But in our case scenario, if we don't know what our opponent is playing, we're just going to be using the Firewall Dragon from Extra Deck by using these 2 monsters on the board. But of course, we're not done yet. We have our Silent Boots in the graveyard that we can banish, and then we can search out a Phantom Knights spell trap from deck to hand. In this case scenario, we're going to be doing Fogblade. And then we set, and then at the end phase, the Bird of Sovereignty is going to be able to special summon a Winged Beast monster, depending on how many spell trap zones are unused. So in our case scenario, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Because your opponent's spell trap zones also count. But we only need a level 4 monster in this case scenario. So we have a Barrier Statue of the Stormwinds. So, what do we have here right now? Well, we have our Firewall Dragon, who is linked together with Bird of Sovereignty and Rusty to bounce back 2 different monsters on the field or in the graveyard back to the opponent's hand. We have a Barrier Statue that locks your opponent out of special summoning any monster except for winds. And then we have 2 monster effect negates, being 2 Fogblades. Of course, we also have our Big Red for next turn as well. So you're probably wondering, with the barrier statue, how are we getting out of our own wind barrier? Well, we do also employ a wind charmer in the extra deck because her only requirements is a wind monster and one more. Alright, so now that we've gone over the deck profile, the combo tutorial, you're probably thinking to yourself, Rusty, Rody, come on, man. Some of those cards were really nice and flashy, but they're just way too pricey. Well, don't worry, I got you covered. If you're a fan of the under 100 budget series right on my Twitch streams, which is Rusty1313, as you know that I always look out for my fellow budget players. And I got alternatives for you. So, as you've probably seen, Ash Blossom. Very good generically against every deck. However, another hand trap that's also good against every deck would be Effect Veiler. And you're also probably wondering, the Red Eyes Dragoon? Come on, what are we going to do about that? Well, we're just going to add in some more hand traps with Skullmeisters this time around. A lot of good reprints this season. And of course, we still have our draw engine, which is a Pot of Prosperity. Now, even though there's not cards that can necessarily replace the Pot of Prosperity for what it does, you could always add in more consistency cards, such as another Spyral Tough, because it's always important to have a Spyral super agent on the board, but also it helps to get a monster for the turn 2 plays. Then you can always add in a third Foolish Burial Goods, because you definitely want to see your Assault or Rescue in the graveyard. And of course, my personal favorite tech of the deck is the Dark Spirit Mastery. What it does is, you can discard one card from your hand, and you can search out or revive a level 8 Fiend monster, which Spyral Sleeper is actually a level 8 Fiend monster. He's also really good to, say, like, have a pseudo-boss monster, but also, you get to fix your hand by discarding, let's say, a Rescue or an Assault, or even another Spyral card or Phantom Knights card in your hand to the graveyard to make more combo plays. And that is going to be the main deck budget alternatives. Now, if you've seen the extra deck, it is also worth a pretty penny, especially with Firewall Dragon being only reprinted as a Ghost Rare, an Ultimate in the OTS pack. At some point, we will probably get a cheaper alternative, but until then, we have our budget replacements. So starting off with Verite Anaconda. Verite Anaconda is really just to get out the Dragoon, but what you could replace it is another double Helix. Now, another double Helix is not bad because you're able to go further beyond. If you get stopped in turn 1, you can still have your double Helix for next turn, or use your drone in the graveyard to revive the double Helix back into the extra deck. Then, of course, you have your Dragoon. Dragoon is the Plan B boss monster, of course. He's really good in his own right. However, we could always replace him with a Borreload Dragon, which, funny enough, if you bait out your opponent just right, you can actually use your Borreload Dragon to steal your opponent's Dragoon. And it's like you didn't even have to pay for it with actual money. You just win that monster in game. And of course, we have our Firewall Dragon. Now, when it comes to Link 4 monsters, I believe the best budget alternative to end on would be a Griffin. You still have to be careful about the zone placement as far as the arrows, but all the special summon monsters won't be able to special summon their, or wouldn't be able to use their effects unless they're in a Link monster zone. So you just have to be sure to have the right angle at the right time. And of course, our access code talker, our OTK machine. Of course, we can always replace them with a Boral Sword Dragon. The reason I choose Boral Sword Dragon for our OTK machine is because not only do our monsters have big attack points already, but he's also very good at clearing the board by making monsters on the board go into defense position and then attacking again. So you'll always be able to do a good whopping 6,000 damage if you're good enough. But that's going to be all for the budget alternatives. Whew! Well, we've gone over the deck profile, we've gone over the combo tutorials, and of course for my under 100 budget players, we went over the budget alternatives. And I gotta say, it's been hella fun to get back on the YouTube. I've missed it so badly. And if you can't wait to see me for another YouTube video, you can always check me out on twitch.tv/RustyRoadie1313. And with that being said, thanks for watching. You have a good night, follow your dreams, and remember, there's always games 2 and 3. Peace.